Disclaimer.
We've got an exclusive full leak of the houses and scare zones coming to Horror Nights 34, thanks to my top secret insider sources inside of the Universal creative teams. What's up, internet peoples? It's me, Derrek BREINDEL, and I'm back to bring the realness to this dumpy little YouTube channel. Now what can I say, folks? Once again, your host, Derrek BREINDEL, has been vindicated by the truth and realness behind his insider sources. Because for those of you who have seen my previous leaks of the Halloween Horror Nights events, yous already know that every year I tell yous all everything that's coming to the event before the announcements come out. Only for a swarm of the haters and trolls to come out and tell you all that I'm a big fat liar. But what did I say last year, peoples? I told yous we was gonna get a house based on the Five Nights at Freddy's. And look at that. Universal just announced that we are, in fact, getting a FNAF house at this year's event. Just like how I told yous in my very first ever leak for Horror Nights that we was gonna get 2 icons for the price of 1. And for Horror Nights 33, we did indeed get Sinister and Surreal, who are in fact dual icons. And on top of that, I also leaked the plans for the Ghostbusters house, the Goblin house, Slaughter Cinema 2, the return of both Dead Exposure and The Weeknd over at Horror Nights in Hollywood. And I even leaked details for both the Triplets of Terror and Major Sweets Candy Factory houses before anybody else. Now I can already hear those keyboard warriors down in the comments, who are all gonna scream, "Oh wait, Derrek never named the Triplets of Terror or the Major Sweets houses in last year's leak. There goes Derrek lying again." Now peoples, let's all be fair and kind to these low IQ losers. Because it is in fact objectively true that I never talked about those 2 houses by name, but I did in fact hint at their existence. And the reason I didn't name them directly in my leaks is because my top secret insider sources have been under a lot of investigation by the higher ups at Universal thanks to these videos. So in order to protect my sources from getting fired, I've had to get creative and leave clues and secrets to the new houses throughout the videos. For example, since I knew we was getting the Triplets of Terror house, last year I told yous all we would be getting the Triad of Terror in the form of Jack, Chance, and Eddie as icons for the event. You see how I changed the word triplets to triad, which both start with the same letter to throw off those Universal lawyers? That's called alliteration. That's that shit the smart people do. Furthermore, I clued yous all in that Major Sweets will be getting a house for Horror Nights 33 by using pictures from the original scare zone, Sweet Revenge, where that character was created when discussing the food coming to Horror Nights that year. And if yous need a little refresher on all those other times that my predictions turned out to be 100% correct, here's a quick little highlight from our previous leak. Alright, so now that we're all caught up, make sure that yous keep a close eye on this video for all of the hints at the real houses and scare zones coming to this year's Horror Nights 34. And also make sure to stay up to date with all the latest insider knowledge by dropping a like and comment and subscribing to the Greggo Movie Rants YouTube channel. Then following us on all the social medias and checking out Greg's online store and Ko-fi tip jar if you want to help fund future broadcasts of the show. Or don't, and just keep listening to all those posers who get paid off by those rich freaks who are trying to sell you lies and tell you that I'm a dirty little liar, when they are the liars, not me. I'm about the truth, and if yous want to be a little sheep and not listen to the facts and realness when they're staring you right in the face, I mean, I can't control yous all. It's a free country for now. But if yous are still here, that's because yous believe in the message we're trying to sell here, man. Yous are not afraid of hearing the truth. You're not afraid to be a free thinker. So, thanks to all of you, we're gonna get started with this full leak of Horror Nights 34. Cue the spooky music! Alright, so before we reveal the top secret houses and scare zones for Horror Nights 34, let's get into the theme and overarching storyline for this year's event. You see, now during last year's Horror Nights 33, we saw the Universal gates getting taken over by the fleshy entity known by the fans as Otis, which a lot of people thought Universal kinda forgot about. But they didn't, because you see Otis is, in fact, a larger part of the multi-year storyline that will conclude with next year's Horror Nights 35. Now this year the guests are gonna discover that Otis has continued to grow and evolve into an abandoned cathedral, which has been transformed into an art museum known as the Museum of Iconography. And much like how the original icons such as Jack, Chance, and Eddie all live inside a fierce lantern, guests will enter the inner bowels of Otis, which has become the home base for the new generation of Horror Nights icons, which we will discover more about in next year's Horror Nights event. Now, in a recent public appearance, the creative director of HHN, one Michael Aiello, told the guests that the main reason Horror Nights hasn't been back at Islands of Adventure is because the immersive theming of that park makes planning houses and scare zones a lot harder than at studios, which is a little more generic. Now, in my recent, balanced review of why Universal's newest park, Epic Universe, is an overhyped pile of dragon turds, I already hinted at the secrets that Universal's been hiding from you Horror Nights fanatics. Because the real reason Horror Nights isn't going to Islands is that starting next year, the Universal creative teams will already be planning on bringing HHN over to Epic Universe, which already uses these big themed portals to justify slapping a bunch of random franchises together in one park. Case in point, Project 915 has just been permitted for construction at the front of Epic Universe, which will build a giant flexible warehouse space that will be perfect for housing haunted house attractions, just like the parade buildings at the back of the park on both sides of the Grand Helios Hotel. And because HHN might not be back at the Studios Park for a couple years once this shift happens, they are going all out on the theming and storyline for this year's event, bringing us incredible sets and facades, much like that entrance scare zone from last year. Absolutely incredible stuff, folks. So, the scare zones for Horror Nights 34 will include, but are not limited to, a scare zone themed to the Mardi Gras murder segment from Slaughter Cinema 2, using the parade floats from the past Mardi Gras event, an Until Dawn movie scare zone, a twisted version of Wicked known as Wickedly Evil, making the story of the Wicked musical all twisted and demented like that one Alice in Wonderland house they did a couple years ago, a scare zone themed to Greek monsters, and, of course, a scare zone themed to the Five Nights at Freddy's, which will be located near the FNAF house for this year. Speaking of which, we already leaked the plans for the Five Nights at Freddy's house in last year's leak, and all of those plans are still set to be the same. So this house will feature two separate paths to account for the popularity of this franchise amongst both the Josh Hutcherson fangirls and the Fredheads. But not only will the FNAF house and Scare Zone be major offerings for this event, because for Horror Nights 34, we will in fact be seeing a total takeover of the event from the gang at Five Nights at Freddy's. The FNAF gang will be re-theming the Dead Coconut Club into Freddy's Pizzeria, and we will in fact be seeing special overlays that will take over every single ride at the Universal Orlando Resort, which have already been tested after hours. And if you don't believe me, you can check out these top secret pictures that my insider sources got of them testing all the FNAF overlays. That's right, people, we got photo evidence of Five Nights at Freddy's overlays coming too. Jimmy Fallon, The Mummy, both of the Minion rides, E.T., The Simpsons ride, Men in Black, and the greatest ride of all time, Fast and Furious Supercharged. You want to still tell me that I'm a liar, people? Suck on this, you haters and trolls. You want to keep saying I don't know what I'm talking about and that my insider sources are fake? Look at these pictures again and tell me I'm a liar, man. You won't say that to my face. Anyways, moving on to those other houses. While the highly anticipated Fallout house will mostly focus on adapting that TV show, this horror maze will also be celebrating the legacy of one of gaming's biggest franchises. And it will most prominently feature scenes based on the best game in the entire Fallout franchise, the one and the only Fallout 76. So get those nylon bags ready and brace yourself, cause this house is set to be so scary, you're gonna have to calm yourself down with a swig from your collector's edition Nuka-Cola rum. And as for the glorious return of Jason Voorhees in yet another Friday the 13th maze, the incredibly named Jason Universe will be recreating the greatest scenes from the Friday the 13th franchise. Now, based on the subtitle of this house being Universe, this maze will obviously be featuring several scenes from the fan favorite film Jason X, the one where they send Jason Voorhees to space. But in addition, this haunted house will most prominently feature scenes from the undeniably greatest film in the entire franchise, Jason Takes Manhattan, which will be giving this underrated classic the respect it deserves. Now I'm sure yous Horror Nights lore nerds are probably getting worried by how many IPs will be at the event this year. And while unfortunately Horror Nights 34 will in fact heavily focus on franchises and intellectual properties, they aren't leaving yous maniacs out in the cold. Because for the first of two, count 'em two, original icon houses, we will be seeing the return of a fan favorite icon, infused in a house concept that the peoples have been begging for ever since this beloved attraction closed many years ago and we saw a house inspired by the Dueling Dragons roller coaster. That's right, peoples, this year we will be getting a house called The Wrath of Poseidon, Lady Luck's Revenge. This original house will tell the twisted tale of Poseidon after his battle with the evil Lord Darkanon. You see, Poseidon gets a grievous wound from Darkanon, which corrupts Poseidon and twists him into a force of evil. In order to reverse the curse of the now bloodthirsty Lord of the Seas, the goddess of fortune herself, Lady Luck, strikes a deal with the god of fear, Adaru, promising to serve him as a lantern lord to elevate his godly power in exchange for stopping the wrath of Poseidon. This house will not only help explain to fans how the literal god of luck got scammed into serving some other god, but it will also bring to life a long-awaited fan concept for a house based on the old Poseidon's Fury show. And as an extra bonus, this house will be taking place inside of the old Poseidon's Fury show building, where the demolition teams have been quietly prepping this space to house what will be one of the biggest and most spectacular Horror Nights houses in years. You know, unfortunately, it means we're gonna have to walk a really far ways to go backstage and end up in this house, but it's gonna be worth it, man. Just trust me. And now some of you might already be asking yourselves, Ayo, Derrek, how exactly does Lady Luck break free from under the thumb of Adaru? To which I tell yous, the answer comes to us in the next Horror Nights Icon House, which will introduce to us yet another new original icon. Acting as a sequel to last year's Museum Deadly Exhibits maze, this haunted house has us enter a brand new art gallery hosted by our newest icon, the Artist. During this haunted house, we will see the artist paint a scene which depicts Adaru's chains over Lady Luck getting broken, declaring war on the Lantern Lords. This house will set the stage for the theme of next year's event, Horror Nights 35, where the two factions of rival icons will face off to take over Horror Nights. And yous better believe we are gonna get into all of the juicy details for that epic storyline during next year's Horror Nights leak, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video when it comes out. Up next is yet another long-awaited IP coming to Horror Nights. Now, during Slaughter Cinema 2 last year, many people saw the blood and chum scene complete with a giant shark puppet and wondered if this could mean that Universal was flirting with the idea of making a haunted house themed to Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Well, wonder no longer, folks, because to celebrate the 50th year anniversary of the first ever original blockbuster, we will be getting a haunted house themed to its criminally underrated sequel, Jaws 3D. Now, we can already see that Universal has been testing the waters for this house with its summer celebration, and you can bet that many of those props and offerings will be kept around as a part of this incredible house. Now, some of you might recall that in Jaws 3D, the setting is in fact at SeaWorld Orlando, and you're probably wondering how Universal is going to get around that fact for this house without sparking a lawsuit. And the answer to that question is simple: I don't know. Now, as for houses themed to the Universal monsters, we have got an interesting conundrum, because with the opening of Epic Universe giving us a land that's basically a Universal monster house all year round, HHN is making a very interesting pivot to keep the highly popular monsters houses as a part of their lineups. So for Horror Nights 34, we will be exploring a whole new set of iconic Universal monsters, starting with this brand new house themed to Dracula, the Spanish version. In this haunted house maze, we will see a redesigned version of Dracula as played by Carlos Valerius, who in this timeline is depicted as the original Dracula's brother, and he will enact his own reign of terror throughout this house. This will be the first in a long line of new monster houses focused on the underrated monsters in the sequels to the original monster franchise, including but not limited to Dracula's daughter, the Ghost of Frankenstein, the She-Wolf, and the scariest one of all, the Invisible Woman. And as for all you freaks out there obsessed with the world of professional wrestling, I got some great news for all of yous. Because HHN will be revisiting the world of WWE, which they haven't done since The Undertaker got a horror maze back in 2000. So this year, we will be getting one of the scariest houses of all time, WWE The Horrors of Vince McMahon. In this haunted house, you will learn firsthand all the terrible things that WWE's CEO Vince McMahon has been accused of, which includes, but is not limited to, forcing all the wrestlers to juice up on steroids in the 80s, as well as all of his hush money schemes and cover-ups involving assaults and sex trafficking. Now, while Universal's going to be exploring these highly controversial subject matters, they will not be depicting any scenes of sexual assault, obviously, because that would be extremely disrespectful. So instead, a lot of this house is going to look like that podcaster room from the Triplets of Terror Maze, where a narrator explains to you all of the terrible things that McMahon has done. It's a pretty unique, high-concept house filled with tons of facts and realness, and I am positive it's going to be a huge hit within this community with absolutely no controversy surrounding it at all. Up next is a haunted house maze based on a very popular, highly acclaimed set of films, so be prepared to experience a maze themed to It Follows. In this very unique, high-concept house for a horror maze, It Follows will utilize the Fast and Furious location to the fullest by taking guests through the story of the first two films in the It Follows franchise. But that's not all, because some of you might be wondering why I said the title of this movie kinda weird at first. And that is because, in that sort of weird transition hallway for the Fast and Furious house location, the It Follows house will transform into a maze themed around It, the spooky clown from the Stephen King movies, who will take over the house to battle the entity from It Follows while promoting the new It prequel, Welcome to Derry. You see why I was saying the title of the house, It Follows, kinda weird earlier? It's called dramatic emphasis. But that will not be the only spooky clown featured at Horror Nights 34, peoples. Because in addition to all of these incredible house concepts, there's one last gesture of debauchery left to join the HHN house lineup this year. And we ain't talking about Jack the Clown, folks, because the final headliner for this year's event will be a major and historic inclusion in Horror Nights history. And yous already know who we're talking about, so let's get right to it. Yous know it. Yous love it. Let me hear you say it. This year we're getting a house for Terrify, the Killjoy compilation film. Breaking free from the depths of hell, the demonic clown Killjoy is finally joining Halloween Horror Nights, bringing his historic legacy of terror to the streets of Universal Studios. Recreating the plot of the incredible film Killjoy Terrify, this haunted house will be a compilation of the first 3 entries in the Killjoy franchise, showcasing all of his bloody kills to drug-dealing members of the Hood, alongside his impressive comedic chops. This might very well be the scariest house in all of Horror Nights history, and my insider sources and I cannot wait to see what the Horror Nights community thinks of this amazing house. And well, folks, that about does it for yet another fully accurate leak for Halloween Horror Nights 34, as backed up by my undeniable evidence from my insider sources secretly hiding in the Universal creative team. So make sure you tell us in the comments down below which of these houses and scare zones you're most excited to experience this Halloween season. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and across the social medias so they can stay informed by all of this facts and realness. And while you're at it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe or something, and I'll be sure to drop another video on here the next time Greg leaves his dumpy little YouTube channel open on the company computer. Alright, take care, bye bye.